Good evening, everybody. It's Michael. I am getting started here. So let's go ahead and get a wrap. And definitely in the comments, let me know if you guys can hear me. Want to make sure you can. If you aren't able to hear me, then I might have to change the microphone that I have. So it's been a couple weeks since I have originally been on. And I told you I was going to be back last week with some updates for what happened that week because it was going to be a pretty intense week. And unfortunately, I didn't get on and totally dropped the ball there. So let's go ahead and do a wrap up the last few weeks. That'll be the last 2 weeks of October. So really a pretty busy week, a little intense as far as total number of cakes that had to be delivered. We had to create a lot of cakes for a very few orders. So we had, for example, a customer who wanted a a full size like Mickey Mouse type of thing where it was the Halloween pumpkin for Mickey Mouse. They wanted a re-representation of that, but they wanted it full scale and then delivered to a location. So we created this cake. If you follow the Facebook page for Silver Rose Bakery, you'll be able to see it. And man, it's a big cake. So it's probably it's about 2 feet by 2 feet, and with ears and the whole shebang. It's basically a giant pumpkin. It had to be rolled into the venue because it was just too heavy for two people to carry. So that was a huge success. And then we had these orders. We had an unusual one where it was a customer who was going to have a birthday uh, for his wife, and he wanted he got a venue and was going to have cakes for every single table, which is really interesting, really unique, and it came out really cool because you have like the centerpiece that is a really pretty little cake for each of the tables, and then a cake for her birthday cake. And so that was a lot of fun, but it took up a lot of oven time because we had to create so many small cakes just to accommodate. So what are some of the big wins for the last few weeks? Obviously, we were able to successfully deliver all the orders on time as expected with designs and everything perfectly for what they wanted. And we got a lot of feedback. It is so rare for a bakery like us who just does events, just does celebrations, with the minor ones of like gifts and stuff like that, but mostly celebrations, and then getting feedback unless we ask for it is almost unheard of. So that was really awesome that we got a lot of really positive feedback from so many customers. And then one of those customers was actually it was a wedding up in Mormon Lake. And if you're not familiar with Arizona, from where the bakery is to Mormon Lake, it's about a 2 hour, 15-minute drive to the location. And that was a big win. It was a cake and a dessert table. So they had hundreds of desserts that had to be put out on a table. Extremely friendly folks, and they really loved everything. And then we got some feedback about a couple hours ago for an anniversary cake from one of our brides who said that it was first time she ever been to a wedding where all the cake was completely gone, all eaten. So that was we'd love to hear that even more. So overall, very positive last few weeks. Some weird ones that also came up, things to keep in mind when you as a business owner, if you're a baker or even in any other industry, is when you get a call from someone. In this case, I'll give you the story. So I got a call from a mother who was purchasing for her daughter, and it was a wedding cake. So she ordered the wedding cake. So it was kind of it was over time. So the first time she called, she was calling for information. So she really wanted to get an idea of what it is that we can offer, and if I can make since I actually took the first phone call, I can make heads or tail of what it is that her daughter wanted. So she provided me all the information, and I was able to clarify through some of the lingo that we use what design the cake was and all that information. And she was very happy. And then a few weeks later, called again, then eventually placed her deposit, and then made another payment. It was going to pay it off over time, which is something that we offer because we know that sometimes a wedding cake, even though it's not renting a venue, which is thousands, sometimes even a couple $100 needs to be pushed over time. We don't want to make it stressful for our clients, and so that was the direction that she was going. But then we get a phone call from my understanding was a grandmother, and the immediate focus of the conversations was straight to the cake is too small. The cake is going to be this 3-tier cake, 3 cakes, one above the other, and the larger of our 3 cakes to boot is going to be way too small for the wedding. And let you think about that for a second. So a cake, a wedding cake, modern wedding cake, mind you, is going to be too small. So I remember this conversation. I asked how tall did they want it to be? No answer, no response. It was very, very dry. I also remember too it was very interesting in the aspect that I ask other questions like, is it the right flavor? How many guests are you having? To clarify, to make sure you're getting the right size cake, and maybe perhaps that might have been an issue. So let's make sure we understand that. Let's check out the design. Does the design require cutting layers or any funky thing like that? And obviously I knew from the most part what the design was, but I want to make sure that me and her were on the same page so we can have a conversation to clarify some of the points that she was concerned about, most particularly the size of the cake, which I found very, very unusual. So first off, wedding cakes. Wedding cakes, if you stack them on top of each other, most cakes are between 2 and 4 layers, depending on the baker. So ours, a 3-layer cake, it's going to stand each layer about 6 inches tall. So it's about 18 inches for a 3-tier cake. That is not bad. So 18 inches is pretty tall for a wedding cake. And at 3 layers, it definitely serves the guest count that they were having. So I was not too concerned about that. They did have more than what the cake would feed, but they were already supplementing with desserts. So they weren't, and plus they weren't too concerned in the aspect that um, they understood that some guests are just not going to eat cake. Dietary, not showing up, just not interested in cake, whatever the reason. So clarified those questions with her and got the understanding, okay, apparently the cake is still too small. I wasn't really understanding why it's too small and if there is an alternative to make it bigger other than perhaps adding another tier. So we referenced that, and there is this continuous follow up in the conversation of what is your cancellation policy? What is your cancellation policy? That honestly, right away, if you're a business owner, is a red flag. My first thought is to just go ahead and say, my cancellation policy is I'm going to cancel you right now and just refund the money, and I don't want to have to deal with this. I have more cakes coming in, more orders coming in. If I lose you, it's not a big deal as a business owner. I can find another wedding to fill in that slot. Most likely, it's going to be the next day that somebody calls to fill in that slot. That date's booked out, by the way, so there's no chance that they can call and ask for that date. It's literally probably, I think it was booked out the same week that they finally I finally canceled them out and got rid of them. So, but in part, I do like to be cordial when there is opportunity to be a little bit cordial. So I said, first off, our cancellation policy, I'm going to give you one chance to pull through and not do a cancellation policy. But if we're going to do this back and forth thing, I'm just going to cancel the order, and that's it. Typically, no refunds, nothing like that, but this is sometimes you can kind of get a gauge that this is a special case. Just get it off your hands and get it away. Don't deal with it anymore. So let them decide, which usually I would say just I'm done with you. Peace out. No thanks. And so we gave them the evening to decide. They did come back and say they wanted to do a refund. Honestly, good, because it was bad news from the start. We really need to put in perspective what is going to be good for your business, but also it's going to be good for you. Are you going to be happy producing the product? Are you going to be happy with the end result? So don't always be excited about getting an order, or find a reason to try to make it so you can have the order. For example, if someone contacts you, orders from you, or is planning to order from you, but then takes a look at maybe some other bakers, something like that, and then even though you've already established a good rapport, and they kind of already made a verbal commitment or an emailed commitment or something like that, that's kind of a red flag too. Maybe you don't want to take on that order. Maybe it's good to maybe put that one aside and say, you know what, we're already booked for that day, or just, unfortunately, I can't accommodate whatever the excuse is. It's protecting you in the aspect of you want to produce only for what's going to make you the most happy, what's going to make you feel like you produced something of the highest quality, whatever your product is. Especially if you're a baker, you want to produce the best thing possible, right? You don't want to deliver or produce anything that's going to make you unhappy, whether it's you don't like the type of design, you don't appreciate the customer doesn't appreciate you, which definitely don't go through with it, or there's just some suspicious stuff going on that might mean that at the end of the day, all the effort you put in was for nothing. So let's go over that today. We're actually going to be talking about scammers. So that for the most part is the update for the week. A lot of really good positive endings for many orders. Got over a weird hump that we had in September and first part of October, where we had some misfires, which is extremely unusual for a bakery to do any kind of mess ups. Normally we have a very set, very structured process that never fails, but sometimes when it fails, it's worth re-looking at it and maybe adjusting. Maybe we're getting too familiar with it, and so we made some adjustments. And I think I talked about that in some previous videos. But today, scammers. Been wanting to talk about this one. Freaking hate scammers. Like, there's banes of existence. This one added itself to the pool, and we got it from the very moment we started the business. We had to deal with these pains in the asses. These vile, disgusting people who want to find your credit card number and take it from you and just ruin your business that's just a fledgling, just got out of the egg, and they want to take everything from you. So I want to go over, actually have a whole list of scammer things I made about 4 years ago. And for the most part, it's still pretty relevant, but I want to add a few additionals because I'm starting to see some trends that they are doing now to pivot away from some of these old school ways of harassing you with BS. So, and first off, when I discuss these and go through these, this can be a phone call, this can be through text, this can be through email. It will probably never be through snail mail because that takes too long. They want money right. They want your money right away. So when I'm going through these, I'll try to reference each of them or where they tend to be most prominent, but know that they have happened on all three types. So phone calls, text messaging, and email, and a couple new ones. File sharing and social media are also areas that scammers are starting to jump into to be able to get your attention. So you need to be able to be ready for these scammers to try to approach you. Now, first things first, if you get a message from someone on social media, or like someone sending you a Google Drive, is sharing a document on Google Drive, or any other file service like Dropbox, if you don't recognize the name, don't answer it. Don't open it. Just discard it right away. And if you do end up with someone who's like, "Hey, did you get something?" "Yeah, but it was from a different name. I didn't recognize it. I can't take the chance." And it might sound like you're some like person who's like all weird and stuff like that, that's not wanting to take any kind of risk. But, well, you know what? When it's your laptop and all the information on it, or it's your credit card and all the potential money that someone else can get steal from you, yeah, I care about that. I don't want anybody else to have that. So, um, let's go through this stuff. I reread some of the details here. So what I want to do is I want to go through the list with you, and some of the hilarious thoughts that I had as well. I'll probably read some of them just flat out. It's easier to do it that way, that I'll explain each one. Hopefully I can get this done within another 30 minutes. It might be a little bit longer, but you know what? It's your information. It's information for you to protect yourself from these freaking morons. Um, Okay, so I'm just going to go through some notes that I had first. I'm actually going to read this part out. So firstly, always use the examples below so all the examples I have here as markers, not actions. So sometimes the reason I say that is because sometimes you might get someone who is legitimately emailing you. It's just that they suck at email and they're giving you a lot of red flags, but there's also a lot of flags that would there's a lot of references that suggest they probably are legitimate. They're just really bad at email. Knowing the traits for fake prospects is important, and as it'll keep you from wasting your time. You'll learn to give more attention to and who not to give attention to. It's always important to vet prospects. This will help to identify real customers versus fake ones, i.e., those sons of bitches. Most real customers want to be real with you. They want to be direct. They want to be helpful. They are curious and are typically acting normal in their messaging and their commentary. Most fake customers are very indirect. They're not helpful. They're careless, and they're kind of weird. Like, they'll pivot on the conversation, or they'll not answer a question. Secondly, so next, the point is that something that we experienced in our business actually for is oh yeah, this is more of a feeling thing. So if it feels weird, just put a red flag next to it. Now remember, feelings are not reality, but feelings are a recognition of something that has happened in the past, or is based on particular values that you have, and it's ringing a bell. So make sure that if you're feeling a little uneasy, ask yourself why. Don't assume, just try to objectively understand, or rationally understand. I'll have to ask Don about that, which way that's supposed to be, and to make sure you're not going to get screwed in any capacity. And it's an obvious one. You are never too desperate for an order. If it sounds too good to be true, it probably is too good to be true, and it's probably a scammer. Especially when, like in the bakery industry, when they get this random message out of nowhere that says, "Hi, I need 500 cupcake for event next week to deliver to my address at 4 p.m. And do you accept credit cards?" Uh, there's all sorts of red flags on that. That's absolutely a scammer and a waste of your time. Then if you want to tell them to go screw themselves, it's a waste of your time just to have to even write back to them. Let's go over some of these. So an interesting one is always wants to text or email, never wants to have a phone call with you. Sometimes in your business, especially if you're a bakery, they want something in particular. It might be a custom order, and if that's the case, you probably want to have a phone call with them to clarify some information they are passing over to you, just because for whatever reason that the messaging won't quite convey the questions you want, and most likely return answers that are not going to be helpful in completing the process of getting all their requirements down. So always ask for a phone call, especially if it's a little unusual. And if they respond that they can't call for whatever reason, most likely it's a scammer. Put another red flag against that and ask one more question if you feel like you want to. For me, honestly, if they say they can't do phone call, obviously I'm done with them. I'm not going to waste my time and take another second. I get too many customers to worry about one who's having problems with their phone while they're texting me. That makes no sense. Uh, their messages include scratchy English. So be cognizant that some folks stink at texting, even email too. So still be aware of these traits. Scratchy English, that includes uncommon grammatical or typo mistakes, and or all of a sudden their English gets scratchy. So someone might email you with a very, very good question, a very straightforward question. Hello, do you offer cupcakes? Or do you bake cupcakes? Or do you make cupcakes? Something that's very simple and straightforward. Uh, just a real quick answer. And we do get these, and they are legitimate customer prospects. So you respond, and all of a sudden, it goes from very simple hello to hello, do you sell cupcakes? To a response of, I need cupcake for 400 person. And there, if you look at the message, there's a space between the period, the last word, and the period. There's an additional space between a comma, and it's just a very grammatically incorrect. It it is understandable, but it's all of a sudden they went from a good English question, a good question in English, to very scratchy wording with a lot of mistakes. That's a pretty surefire uh, example of a scammer. So go ahead and just disregard it. If they respond in a couple days, it might be something you can respond and be like, you can respond to answer their question to see it, to gauge a little bit further. What I've noticed is that a lot of times if I ignore the question, they just disappear, and that typically means that they were scammers. Uh, keep the conversation. Can't keep to the conversation. You ask a question, and all of a sudden you are back to square one with, and or to change the points and topics. Okay, so let's go back to the vanilla cupcakes. So they do respond to your reply. So, do you sell vanilla cupcakes? Hello, thanks for contacting our bakery. Yes, we do sell cupcakes. When is your celebration, or how many cupcakes do you need? And the response is, do you make cake pops? Okay, first off, that's really rude that you can't acknowledge me and saying, okay, great, yes, I need it for this date or something, or yeah, cool, great, glad you make cupcakes. Do you do chocolate and vanilla? Instead, they're jumping right to, do you do cake pops? That's not a common conversation point. It could be real, but it's very unusual to not go with the flow of the conversation, whether it's text, email, or even a phone call. This one I've seen as well, where they're not answering the question correctly. So look for all of a sudden pivoting a topic where it doesn't really flow with the conversation. So if it doesn't flow with the conversation, the odds are it's probably a scammer. So if you feel that you do need a little more information to confirm that, definitely go forward. But have that red flag noted, and don't put them as a priority to respond to. Phone number and email address change. There is no reason to change your phone number or email. I have no idea why the heck this happens, other than they are a scammer. I've had this happen a couple times. Typically, it's happened a couple times in phone number. Typically, it's going to be the email. So, and they'll respond right from your previous email right to as a reply. So you might get an email from markphillips@gmail.com. Sorry, Mark, if you're a real person, I'm just using this as an example. So Mark Phillips is at gmail.com is the one you're having a conversation with. You already asked about cupcakes and cake pops, and now you get a reply from Marjorie Adams at yahoo.com. Why am I getting a reply from Marjorie when I've been replying to a Mark? And that typically is not a common way to respond. And it begs a question of what's going on here, because there's a little more technical detail happening. That is, you're responding to one email address, but somehow, some way, they're able to do a direct reply from another email address. That is unnecessary. There is absolutely no reason for that. Therefore, they are a scammer. Put a red flag on that. You are always welcome to respond to it, but honestly, we have hundreds and hundreds of emails come in all the time, and it's the same email in the conversation thread over and over and over and over again, unless it's multiple people in the thread, in which case you might get a response from one of the others. But you already know that that is one of the emails in the group. But to get one that wasn't even in the group all of a sudden, that's just very unusual and definitely a scammer. Put a red flag on it. It is low priority to respond to, even if you are still curious. I need a favor. So I need a favor if you can do it for me. And best thing is, make sure you're gonna tell everybody about you. You're gonna be super cool, important. Everyone's gonna love how great your cakes taste. But could you do me a favor? Could you deliver it to this alternative address? Or could you take a payment a little bit later, or perhaps on delivery, or some other unusual thing that makes no sense to your typical process that you do? So, the moment that someone asks for a favor, it's automatically a scammer by default. That's the rules. Uh, Basically, every single time I have not run into a conversation where, hey, can you do me a favor, is a prominent aspect of the conversation. I have had conversations where someone has asked, could you, and usually it's by phone, uh, if they could do me a favor, but it wasn't really, can you do me a favor, like, hey, do something for me, but more of a request of, like, I do want to put the order in, but it's Wednesday and I don't get paid till Friday. Is it okay if I don't pay the invoice until Friday? Yeah, that's fine. So that's different than asking for a favor, like and asking if they can deliver to some address. When you look it up, it looks funky or it looks fine, possibly. Um, or they're asking for a favor where it has to do with monetary. Usually, it's a transaction of some sort. Um, And the most unusual one, and this is by default scammer, as soon as they ask you this, no, you may not, period. And that is, your quote's going to be about $400. But they respond to you, say, could you charge me $2,000? Yeah, charge me $2,000. And then, if you don't mind, what we'll do is I'll let you keep $100 of that in addition. But if you can go ahead and charge $2,000, and then if you can refund the rest of that to somebody else, or even back to themselves, that happens quite a bit, and that's automatically fraud. It's automatically a scammer. Dump the conversation. You're done with it. Do not continue on. So that is absolutely a no-no. To continue on with the fraudulent versions of some of this, well, it all has to do with fraud at the end of the day. It's fraud is theft, so either way, it's bad. But this one is in regards to mentioning that somebody else needs to pay. And so what happens here is that they're asking you if, essentially, is it okay if somebody else pays or sends you the money in by some other means? Usually they're asking for you to provide them some sort of way to use a credit card that is usually not PayPal or some other secure method. But they want somebody else to pay. Like, will you accept a check? Can you give me your home address or a personal address or anything but the business? I don't want the business address. And this happens actually quite a bit. Normally, I see this in email, but I'm sure it's going to happen in text as well, and probably never happen on the phone. And what they're asking typically from you is a way to get a hold of the payment processing system you have, so they can get your account information by allowing another person, quote unquote, to um, provide you payment. So absolutely not. I'm going to be sending you a PayPal invoice, or going to process through one of my other processors. It's secure for me, protects me, and if the scammer wants to, they prove that they are a real person, they will process the transaction. It doesn't matter who is the one that does it. But no, it's one of the reasons why a lot of times we don't accept checks from clients. Checks is a concern. It's easy for fraud. When it's an online credit or debit card transaction, it can be tracked. It's extremely safe, especially when it's through a secure system. So if they say, I will be creating an invoice for you that you can pay online. It's secure and easy for you to use. And would you like me to send it to you? And they're either going to say A, yes, send it over to me. B, say, oh, could you send to this other email address? Or C, and what happens quite a bit, is ask you for an alternative to that. So be cognizant that all three of those, one of those three will absolutely happen. Yeah, right. So this is one I've gotten quite a bit, typically through text, if I remember correctly. Thinking back to it, so email sometimes, but typically text. So and again, never phone call in this instance as well. They're asking if they can get a discount, and the reason they feel they deserve a discount and justified is because they are from some country, and in that country they do discounts. No, no discounts. Not giving you a discount. There's no reason for you to get a discount because you're from some country. That doesn't mean anything. And I've approached this the first time we got it, and it does go back into some of the other issues that tend to, or signals, red flags that seem to come up. So you'll notice that they'll go back to, oh, I need someone else to pay for it all of a sudden, or their English gets real scratchy and unusual when it was just fine a moment ago. So I don't understand why all of a sudden you feel you need a discount. So no discounts, no, that's a scam. Move on, next customer. Your ability to produce is worth a lot more than having to even had read that message. And then to go along with that, maybe it may not be this discount. It may request a favor. Going back to the favors again, or possibly a discount. You see, there's a situation that they're having. Some person from some backwoods is sick, or a friend has an illness, or they've just got into town, but for some reason they can't do XYZ. Uh, First off, you should not be contacting a bakery for a cake for a celebration when you're in a very bad situation. That is the last thing you should be focused on. So obviously, your priorities are messed up if that is the case. Or most likely, it's a scam. They're looking for information to take advantage of you. There is no situation. There is no real issue. There is no real situation from the get-go. There's no celebration. So move it along. There is no situation. She was just fine 3 minutes ago when you spoke with her. So why all of a sudden is she magically having this issue with whomever? So going back to the very beginning, with the contacting us for cupcakes. They contact us for cupcakes, and I do want to know what it is that they would like as far as cupcakes, not just flavor, but also are these decorated in some capacity? Do they have, is it multiple flavors? They want flavors for different toppings. Just saying you need cupcakes doesn't mean anything to me, so I need more information. And all of a sudden, they just say in response, very, very abrupt, just make a decision for me. I know it's going to be wonderful. No, no, we're not making a decision for you. You don't need me to make your decision. You make the decision. What flavors do you want? What is it going to look like? What are each cupcake going to look like? And is there any other information about the design, flavor, whatever that I need to know about so that you have made an informed decision and I can make an informed invoice? So if they all of a sudden are abrupt and say, can you make the selection for me? No, you need to make the selection. It could be that they are real and they're just in a rush. This typically happens when it's a corporate setting. It's just like an office party and they're in a rush just to get something done. They usually will need it for something that day or next day or the day after that. And they don't have time. They're kind of throwing it was kind of thrown on their plate to get a celebration going, some celebration treats going. You can work with that, but you can't work with all of a sudden being abrupt. Just make decisions for me. You need information. If they can't provide it, then it's obviously a scam and not worth your time. Can I pay you some sort of amount now, and then I'll pay you the rest in person? No, absolutely not. You need a service from me. I require payment in full upfront by this date. Otherwise, I will not accept the order. Plain and simple. Whether it's a real customer or a real prospect or a scammer. Real prospect, you can ask alternative questions to figure out why they can't pay the full amount or what alternative options you will be happy to provide that keep you safe. For example, to get a prospect that seems legitimate, they say, "Can I pay you now and then X amount later?" Typically, the verbiage is more like, "Well, I can't pay it right at the moment, but can I pay it instead of today, Wednesday? Can I pay it Friday, or at least a portion of it?" Sure. It typically is not going to start with almost 100%. I would say 90 times out of 10, it won't start with, "Can I pay you a certain amount first?" It's going to be more along the lines of, "I can't pay anything at the moment, but I really want to pay on this particular date." So it's easier to roll with the second of that because it typically is a legitimate request. The other one that's asking for payment, partial payment up front, and then some amount plus usually they'll say they're going to give you a really big tip later. That's 100% a scam. So just ignore that one, drop it, and move on. Contacts you at very unusual times of the day, sometimes even at night. Typically, this is between 1 and 4 a.m. I'm in Arizona, so 1 and 4 a.m. my time, or between 8 p.m. and 11. So, I mean, it can happen at midnight, just about any time, but this is what I've noticed so far. They contact you at this weird time, and that is sometimes not unusual, especially for celebration bakers who do get a lot of requests in the evenings. Usually because people are usually home, and before bed they're playing on their phone, and then they want to get some questions answered while they're away. They think that any bakery that's available might be a mom and pop shop, so they might be available to answer a question, or they might have 24-hour service or something like that. So there's definitely some legitimate ones, but there's ones who are contacting you all of a sudden. It's really late. Most likely, they're going to go down the one of the paths that I had already discussed, like scratchy English, or wanting a favor, or changing the topic, or all of a sudden they had Aunt Marjorie's death like within a minute ago, even though they seem just fine, but they still want cupcakes, even though they just had a massive loss in their family. Doesn't make any sense. So contacting you late at night, not unusual, but definitely a red flag because of the fact that they can definitely go down one of those alternative paths that is definitely a scammer. Oh yeah, this one I wish this next one was real. This would be so cool, so awesome. Um, but it's never true. It never happens. They start off with cupcakes. They want some vanilla cupcakes, enough for 20 people, so 20 cupcakes. Then all of a sudden, it's 60 cupcakes. Okay, I can roll with that. And then they ask you, like, "Oh, can I get some? Can you make some of them with chocolate instead of just vanilla?" Yeah, totally. And then the next day later, it's 200 cupcakes. You're really growing this RSVP count real fast. I like this. Keep going. But then it jumps from 200 to 2,000. Okay, something's really unusual. It was already weird when you got to 200. From 20 to 60, yeah, I can understand that, especially if you want take homes or something like that. I'll roll with it until it's weird. 200 is weird. But now we're at 2,000. I'm done. Scammer. Time to move on. Another one is that happens is you give them a quote, and they say, "Okay, I'll do it." But then all of a sudden they say that they'll up the quote a little bit if you do a favor or something like that. And then you might agree to it, and all of a sudden they give you another quote that's probably 5 times larger than the second one. So it's like, wow, I love this. I'm going to be, rich after this order. And I can guarantee you they're already going to go back to the other uh, red flags that we have spoken about before: the scratchy English, the favors, etc., etc. So already it's a scam, especially when they got that 200. It was already not possible. No way. Yeah, this one's next one's an absolute no. Matter of fact, I have a better option for them that you can tell them instead. So this next one is wants to meet you at some oddball place. Typically, it's like a house, or if you search online, it's kind of like an open area. It doesn't make sense. They want to meet you to pay you, or to do the dessert exchange, or something. You don't need to meet me at some weird place. Tell me the delivery address of the reception of the celebration, because that's where I'm delivering to. But if you really feel that you need to meet me, I'm going to actually do you a favor and let's meet at some place that is definitely convenient for both of us, and that is the local police department. I will meet you inside the lobby at the police department at the time you actually requested, so it helps you out there as well. So that's my response back to that one. Red flag, keep going, not worth your time. Wants to all of a sudden include you in the family affairs. No, I don't know who you are. Don't care about your family. I don't really care about you either. So no, you don't need to be part of their family matters. They can figure that out. Now, if it's something that has to do with your business, like they have an allergen that they need to look out for, or they're just really concerned about every person in the guest and want to appease everybody, that's just giving that at that point that's just education for the prospect to guide them in the right direction to make an informed buying decision. So in that regards, yes, that's an okay order to move forward with. But all of a sudden it puts you into the family affairs where Aunt Marjorie's death is part of your problem to take care of it in some capacity. No, 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 no. Done. No, don't got time for that. The non-conversive. So this is unusual one where they contact you, but all of a sudden they become very abrupt in their responses. So they first were asking you, and this typically what happens is that they'll send you an email with a fairly good size paragraph, usually three sentences, that really capture what it is they need and want information regarding. And you respond in kind with a question. And that goes along with assisting them with that long message they provide you. And the response is yes. It's just abrupt. There's no other details to it. So you ask a clarifying question on that. Yes. No is the response. They clearly are now non-conversive. They do not really want to provide you much information to help you. It's just very abrupt. And typically what I've seen is that they pivot to a question back to you. Do you deliver? That's an okay question to ask, yes. Do you accept credit cards? Red flag. You don't need to ask me if I accept credit cards. I'm a business. Of course I accept credit cards. I prefer credit cards. So that's an automatic red flag. Matter of fact, if they even ask about do you accept credit cards, you can either, if you feel like they are potentially real, respond, yes, I send an invoice you can pay through PayPal or you can pay securely online. That usually scares it away if it's a scam, or it opens it up to saying, oh, I can't do that. The other alternative to that is just no response at all. Whether it is you don't respond or they don't respond, I would just drop it anyway. Oh yeah, the this is not really a scammer per se, more of a a would-be entrepreneur who is investigating different bakeries and how they work, or investigating your industry and trying to figure out how you work. Well, stick to your guns on what is important for them to know about your business. Asking if we offer certain flavors or if we have some dietary accommodations, things that are general to what most customers need, yes, I'll be happy to respond. How is your kitchen laid out? Like, where do you put your mixer? Or, where do customers come inside the door? You don't need to know that. That's none of your business. So if they do that, it's not a scam. It's just a would-be entrepreneur, and the odds are you can actually call them out on it. Are you a person looking to get into the bakery business? And if they respond, no, 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 then be like, well, that's information that we can chat about, but let's first talk about your order, and that typically gets rid of them. The alternative, they might say yes. And you know what? It's okay to help a brother out, I guess you can say, for lack of a better phrase. But if you're willing to offer them some piece of advice for getting started in the industry, go for it. If you're not, just say, look, I'm not comfortable providing any information about my business, but thank you for calling. Appreciate it. Bye. Name change. You were dealing with George. Now you're dealing with Mark. And on the third text, all of a sudden you're dealing with Phillips or Philip. Okay, who am I talking to here? Who's who? Why do we have three different people on there? So the moment they start asking questions, but they keep changing the name of the person who is contacting you, all of a sudden it's, "Hi, I'm George," and then it's, "Hi, I'm Mark," and then asking another question from the same phone number or email. No, that that can't be real. That's a big waste of time. You're not getting anywhere. As a business owner, you need to get to the next step. The idea is to close the business with the most information that you need to make a great product or provide a great service. Oh, this is a fun one. This is actually really old. It doesn't happen as often as it used to. It definitely was first an email thing, but I've seen it in text as well. Good day, sir / madam. I am in need for cupcakes for a very important celebration that I am having next month, and would love to learn more information about your business. Okay, the sir, madam, and the kind of the formal lingo is a little unusual, but maybe that's just how they are. Already red flag. And then you get a response back after your reply that goes straight into, instead of really good, proper English, like very formal English, it goes into scratchy English. And this is almost a guarantee that's going to go into scratchy English the next time. So just be prepared for it. It is definitely going to be scratchy English in the next one, and it's a scam, waste time. So I've had times where I've convinced them to contact me and they call, or they give me a number and I call that number, or I ask if we can have a phone call, and the response is, "Sorry, I'm hearing impaired." Uh, no, you're not. You can't be hearing impaired. That's first off, I'm hearing impaired, and I can talk on a telephone just fine. I don't see why that's an issue for you. Now, if you're deaf, you're part of the deaf community. TTY is a very, very common tool for individuals who are in the deaf community contacting other businesses, besides just simply going online and ordering or doing their business online. But to tell me that you're hearing impaired, no, I'm not buying that. We can have a conversation. If you need to use TTY, then let's go down that path. So automatic scammer, not happening. Forget about it. Okay, that completes the list. Now I want to go over some of the ones that are not on the list that I created 4 years ago that are actually happening now, uh, since they're starting to realize that we're catching on. So going to social media first. You get a friend request on your personal page asking about if you make cupcakes. Sometimes that's not unusual, especially if you're part of several community groups on a platform. In which case, it might actually be someone who's interested in your services and contacted you directly because A, they prefer to talk to a real person, or B, they didn't realize you had a business page. But out of the blue, out of nowhere, definitely put up a red flag, especially if the only message they give you is hello and want a response. No, provide more information before I respond. Prove to me you are a real person, then I will answer back. I will accept your message. But until then, I will not. If they respond, hello, I need some cupcakes, be careful. There's no reason to contact your personal page, especially like Facebook. There's no reason to contact your personal page. You have a business page, they contact you there. And if you do accept it, be cautious. I even advise that you ask them to reach out to you via your business page and then have a conversation there. And then again, follow those rules to notate what is potentially a scam. So any of those red flags are still a scam, most likely are still going to happen. A big one that typically happens with social media is the question: do you accept credit cards for payment? There's no reason to ask for that, none at all. It should be already assumed that you most likely accept credit cards, and if not, well, we'll get to that when we get to that. But to ask if you accept credit cards, no, we're done with that conversation. Goodbye. One I actually see on LinkedIn actually has to do with something similar to it, but a little bit different, and that is that they're asking if you can do something for a corporate event or for a business that they have, or that they are a business owner and just need a favor. Just going back to the favors again, and the answer is no. Website inquiries that are fraud. I've gotten those. Typically, they follow along the lines of the other red flags mentioned previously. They're typically going to go ahead and go straight into the scratchy English or something else that will automatically put them into the scammer folder. So go ahead and just delete that message. Don't put it in spam, especially if it's a website inquiry, because it might go, all your inquiries might end up in spam. So just delete that one, or just open it up and just ignore it. And then finally, something interesting happening with, especially with Google Drive, and it's happening with the other ones, other file sharing platforms as well, but typically this is mostly Google Drive. You receive a message that says that you can now view or edit something, some sort of folder or file. Do your research. Do you know who this person is based on the email being sent over or the name that is associated? If you do, great, yeah, and if you're expecting it, open it. But if you don't recognize it in any capacity, there's no history of it from anywhere else, my recommendation is just ignore it. Or even delete it if you're feeling really concerned. Do not open it. It could be a virus the moment you open it. Put it aside, and if someone says, hey, did you get this? Oh yeah, when did you send it on? And you can confirm, for the most part, it is the same file, in which case, go ahead and go for it. So those are some of the things I'm noticing with scammers. Again, a 4-year list, and then some of the updated ones that are happening right now. Phone call scams kind of gotten away. That's not really a big issue anymore, but it does happen once in a while. So just be cognizant that someone might call and scam you. But for the most part, it's going to be email, it's going to be text, and now social media platforms and file sharing. So look out for those. We'll chat next week. If you have any comments or questions, put them in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. I'm going to try to do these once a week on Mondays, as well as discuss aspects of what's going on in the business and particular topics. This one definitely went longer than I would typically like. I don't like going for a whole hour. So majority of the time they're going to be around 30 to 40 minutes. So until next week, hope you all have a fantastic week. Talk then. Thanks, guys.